afternoon, everyone. So as I give you my instruction, we will be having a pre-recorded video for the continuation of our topic for PST. So we've already done discussing the definition of science, relationship of science with other field of sciences, and also I also discussed the scope and nature of science. So now let's proceed on the relationship of science with other school subject. Of course, science always has a relationship or connection with the other field. So first in line, we have science and literature. In science and literature, basically the connection or the relationship of the both field is that science and literature are both or based on natural history. The both field is already actually been discussing natural history, not only that, but also with the discoveries pertaining to the invention. So, with that, there's a connection between science and literature. Always remember, if we're talking about the connectivity of science and literature, the connection of the both field is that there are both on the field of natural history based on the discoveries on the different inventions. Okay? Next, we have science and languages. Of course, other than the other school subject, science and languages are actually connected basically on the references that we will be using. In science, we will also be using elementary books, not only here in the Philippines but also in the foreign countries. So our teaching skills or our teaching strategies basically uses references. References like books. So that is the connectivity or the connection between science and languages. Okay, as we read in the definition below, that science and languages, the connectivity between the both field is that it both uses elementary books. Okay, for science teaching may occasionally be read, and also more advanced foreign textbook on special subjects should be placed in the library, and we actually do that one. And children can express themselves until they develop a good language. So basically, by reading with the different references or different usage of books, we can eventually use or develop our good language. So that's why science and in languages are connected to each other or has a relationship. Next, we have science and history. It is somehow connected or it's somehow based on literature. Why? In science and history, it is basically on the greatest influence of the application of scientific discovery. So, meaning to say, from history itself, we will be knowing the list of person who discovered or contributed each discover in the certain field. So that's why there is a connection of it. Kasi in all field, not only in science, but also in history, social studies, or other subjects or other subject, there is always an history. And when we talking about history, it is all about the contribution, the time, the application itself of the different person that they contributed a certain discovery in a certain field. So that is the connection between science and history. Next, we have science and geography. So science and geography, very very simple. What is the connection between the two? It is they both teach us or discusses composition, pressure, temperature, and moisture of the air. Both, not only the geography but also in science. In the field of science, you can encounter some words or terminologies like pressures, temperature, or even moisture. So that is somehow the connection or the reason why there is a relationship between science and geography. Next, we have science and social studies. Science and social studies has actually been has actually connected to each other or connected to the both field or has a connection. Why? Because they are both about thinking the standard of living. In science, the application of science, we have technology, and because of technology, the standard of living in the Philippines, not only in the Philippines but but in other country, also boost or uh, nasa taas or nasa highest ang ating economy or pertaining to our standard living because we are using the application of science, and the application of science is called technology. So that's why social studies and science has a connection to each other, because they both discuss or thinking standard living. How does the person live in a certain society, in a certain environment, or in a certain place? So that is science and technology. Not only that, not only technology, but also with the transportation. Why we have cars? Why we have so-called machines that used in transportations? Because of science. And in social studies, it also talks about that. So that is why there is a connection between the two fields. Next, we have science and fine arts. So science and fine arts, very simple again. One topic that has a connection to the both field is sound. Sound can be tackled on science. Sound can be tackled also on fine arts. How? By their pitch, length, or string. Vibration of the air, column, and flutes can be demonstrated easily. So that's why there is a relationship between science and fine arts. Next to them, we have science and mathematics. Yes, it is actually has a relationship or a connection. Why? As we, as the belief always said that if you are good in science, you are also good in mathematics. Why? Because they said that science and mathematics are somehow connected to each other. Why? Because they are both discussed or tackle about proportion, inverse ratio, equation, graphs, and other than that, of course, they are both involved with numbers. Calculations, measurements is in the both fields. So that's why they said that if you are good in science, you are good in mathematics also. And if you are good in mathematics, you are good in science also. Okay? So next we have science with painting and drawing. So as we all know, drawing is the immense importance of all branches of science. So meaning to say, when we say drawing, it is particularly on the sizes, the shapes, not other than that, the diagram or even the chart is involved on the painting and drawing and the connection with the science. And as we all know, without diagram, we cannot grapple with theoretical description. Okay, so basically, in scientific explanation, we can a person or child or even student can basically learn more if there is painting or there is drawing. Okay, so if the student can visualize what you are saying, it is matututunan nila or makakatuto sila ng mas madali. Okay, so that's why science is actually has a correlation between painting and drawing. Okay, next to that we have science and craft. Of course, this one, yun na nga sinasabi ko, science always need application. So craft, of course, there is a relationship with one another because science and craft is possible to a great extent. So if there is content, there is also an application, and an application is also called the craft, yung nakikita nyo. So that's why there are somehow correlated or to each other or connection to each other. Science always deals with application other than the content itself. So after the content, you will be assuming or you will be knowing that going to do something. Okay? Going to do something. So that's why here in the coin in the definition for science and craft, it said that they learn more when they do it. So meaning to say there is application. Okay? So next we have science and economics. So here it's very known as really the correlation between the two fields. Why? Because science is actually the profound effect on the economy with a particular country. So meaning to say, it is basically actually deals with the standard living of the person. So pertaining to the food preservation, pertaining to the medicine. So how does the economics of a certain country been developed is actually has an involvement with the word or with the field of science. Okay, so that was the 10 school subject that actually has a correlation or related to science. So now, let's proceed to the last topic for the coverage for preliminary examination. We have this relationship of science with the life and environment. Okay, so basically, I've been mentioned in quite a while that in my discussion the approach that we use in science, and that is called interdisciplinary approach. So what do you think is the advantage of interdisciplinary approach? So these are the lists that basically explains the advantage of interdisciplinary approach. First is the correlation give a sort of unity in the curriculum. So meaning to say, all of the relationship between the one another, between one field of science to the other fields of science, and also not only that, but also with the relationship of science to the other school subject will give unity in the curriculum. Okay, in the curriculum of the subject that been implemented in a certain institution or in a certain school. So that's why that is the advantage of interdisciplinary approach. Second, it encourages all-round development growth of the child. Yes, of course. Because if you are dealing with different field or different subject, you are actually giving all all of your capabilities, and also by that teachers also can observe if you develop or if you grow in a certain field. So that's why it is also an advantage of interdisciplinary approach. Next, it assists in bringing closer the school and society. So that is basically one of the advantage of interdisciplinary approach. Yes, because always in a certain school there is always or there's always rules. Okay, rules, or mean to say that science is basically the medium of learning based on the school and of course in the society. So that is the advantage of this interdisciplinary approach. Next, it establish close relationship between experience and knowledge. Of course, as we all know, science, when we say science, is not only about the knowledge, it also experience, it also with the base of experience, not only by the person but also with the other persons that basically give contribution in a certain field or in science. So that is actually the explanation why there's an advantages between the or establish a close relationship between the experience and of course the knowledge. So basically, if there's a knowledge, of course that person is well experienced, meaning to say sa experience yan nakukuha or sa experience niya nagbe-base ang kanyang nalalaman. So that is actually the definition of this statement. So it establish close relationship between experience and knowledge. So that is the advantage, another advantage of interdisciplinary approach. Next, it prevents narrow specialization. So next, again, it prevents narrow specialization. So meaning to say there is an involvement, the usage of resources. What is the reason or what is the what is the reason why we use resources? Because we want to produce a product. Okay, so that's why it prevents narrow specialization. Next, it makes educational natural. Okay, of course, science is natural, science is objective, there is an objectivity, there is a goal. So meaning to say and also we know that science is could actually based on nature. So that's why it makes education natural. Okay? Next, it makes lesson interesting by bringing in the other subject and experience. This is actually the good advantage of sciences. Kasi when you discuss the topics in science, you can actually relate it with your experiences. Not only with that, you can explain it with your own experience, and even though your subject is basically terminologies, so if you are talking about terms, you can apply it, you can apply your experience to that. So that's why it makes lesson interesting, because the teacher can make or can bring the other subject and the experiences of that teacher. So that's why it is involved in the advantage of interdisciplinary approach. Next, learning by doing in fostered while organizing project to correlate different subject. Then it broadens the teacher's outlook, of course. And lastly, it helps teacher to learn more from books and keep their knowledge up to date. So basically, the three advantage, or the last three advantage, has its connection to each other. Why? Because of course, in teaching science, day by day, the teacher will actually the teacher, meaning to say, if you're teaching science, the teacher or your knowledge about the field will actually narrow pa, or it broadens you every day if you are in the field of science. Because as I've said, as we all know, that science is for discovery. Every day there is discovery. So that's why it broadens the outlook of the teacher. Next, by reading books, by using references, of course, the teacher can learn more, because by the usage of books, not only books but also with the social media that we have, the website that we have, the teacher can learn more. Not only the teacher, because of the teacher will transfer it to you as a student, it broadens your knowledge pertaining to the field. So that was the advantages of relationship of science with the life and environment. So that was the last topic that we will be discussing in preliminary level. So be ready for your examination for principles, strategies, and teaching of medical lab. Thank you so much. If you have a question, you can raise it in our group chat.